Imagine the world before cities, before monuments, before even the simplest carved symbols of early humans. There were no towers, no glowing windows, no screens, no noise of machines. Only the crackle of fire, the whisper of wind, the murmur of distant animals hidden by darkness. For those early humans, the night was a vast ocean of shadow, a world of uncertainty and vulnerability where every sound could be a threat. But above that darkness was a second world, brilliant, unchanging, eternal. A sky overflowing with stars so bright they cast faint shadows across the ground. A river of light, the Milky Way, stretching overhead like a bridge to infinity, hinting at realities beyond imagination. In that ancient silence, the stars were the only constant, patterns repeating with perfect discipline, undisturbed by storms, famine, conflict, or death. And in a world where human life was precarious and fleeting, such constancy felt divine. Early humans looked upward not out of curiosity, but out of necessity. The heavens were refuge, promise, comfort. They offered orientation when the landscape changed, when weather shifted, when darkness swallowed every known landmark. The stars were guides, fixed, predictable, and vast. And in their slow nightly arc across the sky, people saw something more than light. They saw meaning. They saw order. They saw intention. The rhythm of the sky offered something the world on the ground could not. The assurance that some forces were steady, reliable, unbreakable. And so, long before the first temples rose from stone, the first temple of humanity was the sky itself. To ancient people, the stars did not simply exist, they spoke. Their patterns were messages carved into the darkness. Their movements were the language of the divine. And because the stars endured in a way humans could not, remaining unchanged while generations lived and died below, they came to represent the eternal. The stars were the first immortals humanity ever encountered. And in contemplating them, humans began to contemplate their own existence. As humanity settled into villages and kingdoms, the practical power of the stars revealed itself. The heavens became not only symbols of the sacred, but instruments of survival. The Egyptians learned that when Sirius rose in the pre-dawn glow, the Nile would soon flood, replenishing the soil with life-giving silt. This timing was so precise, so reliable, that they believed the star itself commanded the waters. Thus astronomy became theology, and observation became worship. The ancients understood the sky not with scientific detachment, but with devotion, because the sky governed life itself. In Mesopotamia, priests climbed ziggurats not to get closer to the gods metaphorically, but because the higher they stood, the more perfectly they could read the heavens. To them, the stars were the diary of the divine, each eclipse a warning, each conjunction a prophecy. These celestial patterns influenced harvests, wars, coronations, and rituals. The Babylonians etched star charts into clay tablets as if recording the commandments of the cosmos. Astronomy was power. To control celestial knowledge was to command civilization. In the far Americas, the Maya constructed entire cities aligned to the sun and stars. Temples, plazas, and monuments formed calendars carved in stone. Their priests followed Venus with mathematical precision, believing its cycles shaped the fates of rulers and empires. In ancient China, astronomers kept meticulous records because the cosmos reflected the moral order of the kingdom. An unexpected star or a dimming sun was not merely an astronomical event, it was a political omen. In Polynesia, master navigators memorized the rising and setting points of hundreds of stars, using them to voyage across thousands of miles of open ocean without tools, guided only by celestial memory. Across the world, the stars taught humanity how to measure time, anticipate seasons, navigate continents, and decode the rhythms of Earth. They were the world's first scientific instruments, celestial tools that allowed scattered tribes to become civilizations. And because these cosmic patterns shaped agriculture, architecture, law, and culture itself, ancient people revered the stars not as distant suns, but as guardians, regulators, and divine overseers of human life. Yet beyond survival and structure, the stars carried something deeper: story. The constellations were mythic canvases upon which cultures painted their collective soul. In Greece, the stars immortalized heroes and tragedies. Orion, eternally hunting. Andromeda, forever chained to the sky. Scorpio stalking the heavens in pursuit. These stories were not children's tales. They were moral lessons, cultural memory, spiritual anchor points. They reminded people who they were, where they came from, and what values defined them. In Aboriginal Australia, the sky was a living library of the dreamtime. Every constellation marked an ancestral being or cosmic event. The dark spaces between stars, the dark constellations, held their own myths, giving shape to animals and spirits hidden between the points of light. In sub-Saharan Africa, the stars told stories of creation, cycles of life, and the deeds of ancestors who became celestial guardians. In the Arctic North, the Inuit saw the sky as a place where souls danced after death, shimmering in curtains of aurora that moved like breathing spirits. For ancient people, myth was not separate from reality, it was reality. The stars held the origin of life, the structure of the universe, the fate of humanity. They connected the living to the dead, the past to the future, the earth to the heavens. In a world without written language, the stars became the great archive of culture, their stories preserved in patterns passed across generations. And as those stories spread, they shaped not only individual identities, but entire worldviews. Through the stars, humanity created meaning. Today, the stars no longer dictate the rise of empires or the timing of harvests. We no longer build temples aligned to solstices as acts of worship, nor do we chart the planets to predict the fates of kings. Yet the stars remain woven into our collective consciousness. They still inspire our stories, our dreams, our art. We still give constellations names, still send telescopes into the heavens, still search for answers written in starlight. We still look upward in moments of humility, grief, wonder, and hope. Even now, especially now, the stars remind us of our place in the universe. Despite all our advancements, our glowing cities, our machines and screens, the night sky continues to call to something ancient within us. Because the stars are more than distant suns, they are the birthplace of the atoms in our bodies. The carbon in our cells, the oxygen we breathe, the calcium in our bones, all forged in stars that lived and died billions of years before Earth existed. When ancient people worshipped the stars, they were, without knowing it, honoring their cosmic origin. The stars were not merely above us, they were within us. And though we no longer attribute floods or famines to the heavens, we still treat the cosmos with reverence. We send probes beyond the solar system. We listen for signals from distant civilizations. We search for planets capable of life. The questions that once filled ancient myths now fill scientific journals. How did we get here? Are we alone? What lies beyond? The sky still holds the same mysteries. It is we who have changed how we interpret them. In the end, The ancient worship of the stars was not primitive superstition. It was humanity's first philosophy, our first science, our first religion, our first literature. The stars gave us purpose long before we understood what purpose meant. And they continue to remind us that we are part of a story far larger than ourselves, a story written in light across the darkest canvas of the universe.